Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. A little tired driving. How far is it to Albany?
Oh, in about 18 hours, but don't worry, I'm going to take a shortcut through Damnation Alley.
Damnation Alley. That sounds scary.
It's no picnic, Ed. There's tornadoes, giant scorpions, crazy outlaws living in western towns, kids throwing rocks at you, and don't get me started on those killer cockroaches.
Killer cockroaches. You mean like those killer cockroaches?
No, you didn't leave the lid off the food again, did you?
Sorry.
Let's just start the show.
Hi, this is Ed Dollister,
This is Mitch Halleck.
and welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, and a big thanks to our big 1,000+ subscribers, thanks for coming back. Hey, Mitch, how can you find out a little bit more about the show?
Oh, and it is just as easy as jumping into a converted RV and driving across the wastelands after a post-apocalyptic nuclear war and headed upstate to New York and Albany. I don't know why, but you are. All you got to do is hit that button below, and you too will be riding along with Ed and I as we go across the country looking for killer cockroaches and all sorts of mayhem right here on Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure, all for free on YouTube.
That's right. And we're heading to not really 1977, 1979 is when Damnation Alley is set. It came out in 1977 after many delays and issues. It was going to be the big movie of 1977 until and you know what? It was going to be bigger than Star Wars, they thought.
You're so funny, Ed.
I know, but it wasn't that great, was it? Anyway, before we ask about what you thought of it, I've got my trusty guide to the movies, and there is a review in here. Damnation Alley, plotting and silly adventure about a tiny band of nuclear war survivors who trek across the US continent searching for signs of life. The acting is second rate. Considerable emphasis is on special effects, which come across as half-baked and phony looking. Also with Dominique Sander and Paul Winfield, starring Jan Michael Vincent and George Papard, 1 star. Did you see Damnation Alley in the cinemas?
No, thank God I did not.
I don't think many people did.
No, but I do remember the ads for it. Yeah, forget it. 1977, Star Wars owned everything, every theater, every magazine, anything I can get my hands on was all about Star Wars. I saw ads for Damnation Alley. I had no desire to see it whatsoever. You know, it was just no, I nothing about it made sense. And you know when I watched it for the first time? 2 days ago when you told me we were doing this.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I watched it twice. You know why? I fell asleep the first time, woke up hours later, and then realized I had to watch it again for the show. Went back and watched it. And boy, that's 2 hours I will never get back. And you owe me that.
All right. Well, we'll make this a quick show then, because, you know, I don't know what you need some nap time, obviously, again. So I don't want to ruin it all for you. But I saw it. I think I saw it on TV at one point many years ago. But I remember the ads, and I just remember the Landmaster, the famous vehicle that they used, and that essentially was what they focused the marketing on. Really, this great RV, and you know, in the 70s there were so many movies that featured great vehicles, and I always thought in my mind, I thought they used. The Landmaster was from Ark, the TV series. Ark
the
2,
TV show.
but it wasn't. It was actually a different one. So I got that mixed up in my mind. The film was going to be huge. It's based on a 1968-69 novel by Roger Zelazny, and it was originally a novella, and then he expanded it out into a novel because he wanted to sort of get a better option for movie rights. And it was snapped up, and the novella was, well rated and everything like that. The script apparently was really good. He was really happy with the original movie script, but the problem was that it was pretty unfilmable at that time.
Oh
They
yeah.
couldn't do all the visual effects. They didn't have the budget. They approached Robert Wise, the director of Sound of Music and later on
Star Trek.
um, Star Trek, the motion picture. He couldn't do it. Douglas Trumbull for the effects couldn't do it and everything like that. So they ended up changing the script a little bit. Basically, it's a bit of a mess because by
Yeah.
the end of the film, they decided to edit a lot of the subplots out. Murray Hamilton, who's in the, we'll talk about the cast,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Murray
yeah.
Hamilton's
The
role,
the
who you'll
mayor
know
from
as the mayor of
Jaws.
Jaws,
Yeah,
um,
I'm like, what's he doing here? He
all
doesn't
his
say a
scenes were
word.
cut out. All his scenes or dialogue
Made
scenes were
no
cut out.
sense. I'm watching it and I go, hey, look, it's the mayor from Jaws. That's cool. He's like a general in the beginning before the war starts. And he just looks at the camera. And I'm like, was there? So there was more with him.
There was. So
Okay.
you find out how he breaks down. Essentially, look, the start of the film is actually there's quite a bit of tension, I thought, when they're in
Yeah,
the
a freaking
bunker.
nuclear war breaks out. That's big stuff. And I'm like, what caused this to happen? I mean, they just like walk in and you see George Papard with a weird mustache
Yes.
and Jan Michael Vincent. They're in the Air Force and they go down below the ground and they work in a missile silo and they have and I thought of War Games because it was very
Yes.
similar years ago when they put the key in and they had to
At
turn
the
it,
same time, yeah.
ignite the missile, and it was all, of course, a war game. But you're watching this and I go, wait, is this real? Is this is really happening? And again, back in 1977, this was very tense
Mm.
scenes to watch because we were, about to have a war with Russia and we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I could see this being very, very exciting, if you will. But I don't know. It seems like they survive a nuclear bomb, a nuclear holocaust, and everybody seems to be okay with it. It's
I
like,
know. It jumps forward to maybe 2 or
yeah,
3 years later where the guys in the silo are still all around.
yeah, where did they eat? What happened to the bodies? What happened to their families? No one seems to like what happened.
Because
You
they
know,
talk
it's like,
about George Papard's wife, I think, who's in somewhere like Boston or Chicago or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, and
yeah,
and there's a bit of tension between Jan Michael Vincent and George Papard that they set up.
right.
Later on, there's scenes that again have been edited out by 20th Century Fox to try and make it only a 90-minute movie. So that's why a lot of that sort of stuff doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Basically, what happens is it's a stupid pretense. What happens that they are working on the Landmaster George Papard in a different area of the
Air Force
silo.
Base,
A
whatever. Yeah.
guy, the actor, I've forgotten his name, but and he's been in a lot of things. The guy who
Wait,
ends
the
up
other guy with the mustache that drove
no,
the
no, no, no.
motorcycle?
No, that's Kip Niven. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's
I was
well
like,
known.
who's this guy? He was the only one I didn't recognize. I didn't know who
Okay,
the
he's been in a lot of stuff, but the guy who ends up reading the Playboy and falls asleep and a
Oh,
cigarette.
that guy. Yeah. No, he's in a zillion movies. I knew exactly who you're talking about. When I
Yes.
spotted that guy, I go, oh, that dude. I don't know his name, but that guy. Yeah, he's in a million
So
movies.
so basically, a burning Playboy set. Of course, he's
Blows up the whole
reading.
place.
He's
Yeah.
smoking in a no smoking bomb room,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
basically everything blows up. They do use
Exactly.
a lot of stock footage because a lot of maybe a quarter of the budget. Their budget was sent to Star Wars for their
As
visual
it should have
effects.
been. Yeah.
Which it thankfully it did. They had to use a lot of stock footage for like
Oh, yeah,
missile
with those
launches, and
missiles and stuff. It was
there
like,
was
oh,
the
raining. Yeah.
all that stuff was from Earthquake and from other
Right.
movies and stuff like that.
I don't know,
So
man.
basically that's where you're left with just the four guys. Kip Niven,
Yeah.
George Papard,
Paul
Jan Michael
Winfield
Vincent,
and Jim
and
Michael
Paul
Vincent.
Winfield, who
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember from Star Trek 2.
Right.
But he's been in a lot of other things, of
Oh, he
course.
was in a big actor over here. Sounder was a story about a dog. He was in that movie too. I think
Yep.
Cicely Tyson was his wife. But no, I don't know. This, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of every single drive-in schlocky movie that came out in the 70s when I was a kid. But there was other ones that were better. There was like Race with the Devil. which had an RV in it too. And then RVs were the thing back in the
Yep.
70s. I mean, Shazam had one on his show every week
Yes.
too. They would drive around in an RV. And then, like, as a kid, you could get the Evil Knievel RV, or
Yes.
Big Jim had
Big
one, and
Jim.
G.I.
That's
Joe.
right.
They all had RVs. That was like the badass mobile station wagon thing, like a
But
base.
this one had like 3 wheels on each wheel. It was kind of
It had
cool.
12 wheels altogether.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what the purpose of that was, because I'm like, okay, they went and then the others rotated.
I
What
think
did
because
that do?
they could go over rocky terrain
Yeah,
because
they could
after
go
the
over the rocks,
nuclear
I guess.
bomb, and then they decide to go to Albany. George
Albany, New
Peppard
York.
doesn't say exactly why. I
Well,
thought his wife was maybe there, but
no, because they were getting a radio transmission, but he said it's automatic. So
oh,
I'm like,
that's
so if
right.
it's an
Yes.
automatic thing, why are you bothering going if it's automatic? You know?
So they stop off at Vegas, and we should say that the video game
Circus,
Fallout,
circus. Yeah.
this film has influenced other things, even though it's not that good, and it is
Yeah.
a bit of a cult film. It's influenced Fallout and all those
Oh, Blade Runner
post-apocalyptic.
2049. I was thinking of that when they
Yeah,
had the scene in Las Vegas and such with the.
yeah, and they end up picking Dominic.
Who is she, by the way? What
I
movies was she in?
I don't know. I've never
Okay,
seen
because I'm
her
watching,
before.
I go, is she like famous? Like, I thought it was Catherine Deneuve. I was like, is this like some famous actress from the? Are we supposed to know who she is?
No, I don't know. Maybe we do. I've never seen her before. They end up catching up with Jackie Earl
Jackie Earl
Haley
Haley.
um
Now,
as
now,
Billy.
did you catch the subtle references with Jackie Earl Haley's character?
No.
Well, I saw him originally in the Bad News Bears, which is a
Yes.
movie about a little league baseball team, and he was the pitcher, Kelly.
Ah, okay. So
Ah, so he's whipping those rocks like nobody's business. And I'm thinking, oh, did they do that purposely? Because the Bad News Bears came out in like 75, 76, and this is 77. So
yep.
maybe they're trying to tie into he was like the teen heartthrob, but he was
Yes.
a baseball pitcher and he could throw a hell of a ball. So I'm like, that's maybe why he's whipping these rocks and taking people out, but
Yeah.
maybe
And then we end up meeting Exeter from Mork and Mindy, who's
that's who that was.
who's the mountain man. Yeah.
The guy with the big beard.
Yes.
I was like, who is this guy? I know him, and I couldn't understand,
Yeah. He's
Bunch of
Exeter
guys.
from Mork and Mindy. Check out our Mork and Mindy show, as well. So they meet up with these, people, but not a lot happens. There is
No,
there's a
nothing
cool
happens.
scene. There's a cool scene
Nothing.
on with Jan Michael Vincent on dodging these
Motorcycle.
giant scorpions, and
Yeah.
they actually made life-size scorpions,
Yeah.
but they
And that didn't
looked
work.
too bad, so they
Yeah.
decided to just film real scorpions and composite them on.
Oh my God. It was so bad. I was like, because I'm at this point, you've already had movies like Sinbad, with
Yep,
the stop motion.
yep,
And then, of course, Clash of the Titans is going to come out. But you could have made, I don't know how much money it would have cost, but you could have made like stop motion
yes.
scorpions or done something with it, maybe practical effects. But what a piece of crap that was. And don't even get me started on the cockroach scene. You got some scene where they go into a city and there's just skeletons left in the
All
cars,
clean, and I liked how
all clean.
the rubber was all eaten. There was no thing
Yeah,
with no car
everything was
seats.
yeah, yeah. And Paul Winfield goes, "Wow, all the bones have been picked clean, like they're
And George Papard's going, eh.
yeah." And then it's like, oh, and there's these Madagascar hissing cockroaches. I know that from my Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
That's what they use for these like big bugs.
Yep.
And oh my God, I know they didn't have CGI back then, but to make it look like there was mass mounds of cockroaches
They were
headed
just like
towards
pulling a rug.
it looked like a rug. It looked like a remote control car, and they just
Yep.
put like a rug on top of it and they moved it around. And Paul Winfield, I don't know what kind of acting that was, but he was like screaming as he's getting eaten by the killer cockroaches. And amazingly, George Papard knows exactly what they are. So why did we stop and go look around for it to kill Paul Winfield? It's like,
I think
"Get my
so.
cockroaches.
Well,
Let's go."
there's a scene that's cut out after that where Jan Michael Vincent basically blames George Papard for why didn't you save him? Why didn't you do all that?
Yeah,
Because in
he just
the
left him.
other edit, it's just like nothing happened. They don't care.
No, they don't. I see. I don't know which one you watch because I went to YouTube and there was multiple versions of this movie out there.
Yeah.
And there was one that looked like it was taken from a late night TV show or something like that, because there was like a little introduction and then had an interview with this guy named Jeffries who built
The
the land
Landmaster.
mass,
Yep.
yeah, the Landmaster. And he's talking about how it steers from the middle, and that's how they steered it. And it's actually two different trucks, and it can go so fast, and it was designed to go in the water, and they used miniatures for some of those effects later on. But this guy knew his stuff, and he was very proud of this vehicle. And then he talks about the backstory, how Steve McQueen was supposed to be in the movie, but he wanted like $2 million, and they didn't have the budget to pay Steve McQueen to be in this movie, which is a good thing, because I don't think Steve McQueen could have saved this piece of crap movie, because if there's a longer version, it might have been on television years ago when they would show like deleted scenes because they had to pad it. But you're right. It's the version I saw is so chopped up. It made no sense whatsoever. I have no idea why they're going to Albany. They're just picking up people. The sky has this, what they probably thought was an impressive effect back in the 70s, but it reminded me of this other movie called The Final Countdown, which is going to come out in a couple of years, where the boat goes, the Nimitz goes back to Pearl Harbor, and they have to fight the Japanese attack planes. But they just do something with the sky throughout this movie, like they just have.
So
like,
it's actually lasers shot onto like reflective material, and this was done at the last. This was a last minute decision. So as a result, they didn't prepare like any of the shots or knowing.
No.
So the tracking, they didn't have motion tracking. That was being built in 1970.
Yeah, for Star Wars.
When it was Star Wars was. So, it's all a bit janky and it's more distracting. And I did read an interview with George Papard, who was saying we had a really good film when it was not edited, and it all became about the sky and the RV Landmaster.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, literally, there's sections of this thing where they go looking for parts, I guess, in a junkyard.
Yes.
And then a storm comes, and then they do a shot of the Earth, and you see this massive cloud coming over it.
I think that's the Earth was trying to right itself. Remember, George Papard said,
is that what the axis was?
I think so, yes. And that's why everything was okay. But there was a tidal wave.
There was a tidal wave, and then the thing, the boat,
my God, did that look like out of someone's bathtub?
It's flipping around, and they're inside of it. Somehow water's not coming into the vehicle, and then it gets on top, and then it starts going, and you can tell it's a miniature. But before this, we're jumping around. There was a second Landmaster 2, which there's a tornado storm coming, and they, instead of going through it, the other guy anchors down, and his vehicle gets flipped over, and he just bangs his head, but he's dead. And that's the one that Paul Winfield was in at that point.
There was only one. They only made one Landmaster as well, so they obviously filmed them in.
That's why there's not two in the shot.
Yeah. There was one shot where they had the two driving after each other, which looked okay, but they just obviously gave up with that. So,
but there's no explanation on fuel, because I'm thinking to myself, it's reminding me of Mad Max or the Road Warrior. It's over here, because I'm thinking, where are they going to get the gasoline from? There's no other vehicles out there. Apparently no one's there. Everybody's been wiped out, been vaporized by the nuclear war, which makes sense. But then when they find Billy seems okay. I don't know what he was eating for the last couple of years, but he seems pretty healthy.
His parents.
Because I'm like, what's going on? And the same thing when she's in Vegas, whatever her character is.
Janice. I suppose there's lots of, I don't know, but there's no anyone, like there's no skeletons. There is in the
there's
cars,
there's no destruction. Like, oh look, there's Circus in Vegas. Wouldn't that have been like wiped away or something? But I gotta ask you, say there's this book by Roger Zelensky, whatever.
Zelensky, yes.
Maybe, and I honestly watching this movie, because I'm thinking of like the Omega Man with Charlton Heston and Soylent Green. There was a lot of these post-apocalyptic nightmare sci-fi movies, even Logan's Run. I'm thinking maybe in a book or a novel, this is actually a pretty good story about this, like, desolate world out there, and they're trying to survive, and they're in this truck, and the only hope is to get to Albany. I don't know what's going to happen when they get to Albany. They really don't tell you what's happening, but it just doesn't make sense. Where are they getting the food rations? Where are they getting the fuel? who's driving this truck? There's nothing on the roads. The highways seem to be perfectly fine. The
Yeah,
bridges are
so
all
they
intact.
didn't need any of those 12
No
wheels.
GPS. They knew where they're going. There's no signs. There's no maps.
Yeah.
I mean, they start off, I'm assuming, out in California, because then they go across the country. They go through Nevada because they go through Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And then we don't know where they go for a while because Albany's upstate New York. It's right up
Yeah,
the
so
road from
isn't that like
Connecticut.
going to like LA or and
New York.
Vegas are pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. So they
Like
went
in the
down
scheme of the
and
country, and then they've
up,
got to go
yeah,
all the way up through.
up to the
Oh,
north.
didn't
Yeah.
she say the Rocky Mountains? Didn't they go through the Rocky
At one
Mountains?
point, they were going through Colorado, which I'm like, wait a second. If you're going through Rocky Mountains and you're in Nevada, that means you went straight up north and then over. None of this makes sense. I mean, the deriving, whatever. Okay, let's talk about the acting.
What acting?
What acting? George Papard, like you
What's
said to
his
me, what
accent? Wait,
I
is
don't
that
know
a?
what he's doing. I don't know. He seemed bored or distant or authoritative. Is that what he was trying to come off with? Like he's a badass, he's a tough guy. None of that rings out. I don't. He's just like a robot. He has no emotions. He's like Mr. Spock driving a truck. You know.
Yeah. And then Jan Michael Vincent showing off his motorcycling skills. He's quite good, I
He
think.
did his own stunts. I heard that was
Yes.
him on the bike. Yeah, yeah.
Apparently, he upset some of the locals during filming,
Oh,
the indigenous Americans, and what they did is they befriended him, is what I read, and they gave him some peyote, and he had to take like 4 days off the shoot.
really?
Yeah, because of the effects of that peyote.
He
So
would. You wouldn't know. He could have been on the screen. You wouldn't have noticed any of this was any out of sorts because I wish George Papard was on something. Wish
he
I was
was.
on something watching this movie because I was bored to tears, man. You know, but
It was, I mean, the good thing is, I suppose, at least I thought they were reasonably likable characters, as likable as they could be, even though they're pretty one-dimensional. I thought it would have
yeah,
been great at the end because, they run off and they get there and they see all the people at the end, spoilers, living in Albany.
yeah,
All those trees were not hit. Obviously, the fallout from New York
right,
was,
right.
I don't know how close Albany is to New York.
Albany's north from New York City, a couple hours. I mean, it would have
Okay.
got wiped out.
Well, yeah, but it would have been nice if George Papard's wife was there, or
Well,
something like that. I don't know.
I everyone seemed pretty okay with the fact that the world was just blown to bits.
Yeah.
No one seemed that upset by it. There's no, fights. Every other post-apocalyptic movie I've ever seen, there's always this power struggle and who's running the show, and it's broken off into tribalism, and there's
Yes.
factions everywhere, and it's again like Master Blaster and Auntie
Gosh, I should
Annie.
know. Tina Turner. Yes.
Yeah, well, I know that, but her
Yeah, I
characters,
know. I can't think.
Auntie Entity
That's
was
it. Yes.
yes. And that whole thing, spin the wheel, make a deal, Thunderdome. Okay, maybe in the 70s we weren't that far out there. That would be a couple years, and we'd have to have, the influence of George Miller and you Australian filmmakers to go
Yes.
totally crazy. But it just seems so, I don't know. I would have
A
thought more, you know,
especially because
more dangerous.
the poster said something like, you have you have seen the great adventures, or you're about to experience one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I know it's a
You weren't,
poster, and the
yeah.
trailer makes it look quite exciting for what it
Did
is.
you have a scroll in the beginning of yours too, like little updates, like what's happening in the world? And
No.
the no,
So I
really?
watched so yeah, you can rent it on, actually you have to, in Australia you have to purchase it for $8
Oh no, this was free.
On YouTube Movies, or on, I think, Google Movies.
Oh, I would
But
have sent you the link to
well,
watch
I
it.
ended up watching I think it was a Blu-ray or a DVD rip on YouTube, which is available. We're not condoning
Wow.
piracy or anything like that, but It did
No,
have
like I
it did
said,
have Spanish subtitles, I think,
oh no, no,
underneath
no,
it.
no, no, no. Mine looked like it was pulled from a DVD release because it had like this 15-minute interview with this Jeffries fella
Ah,
who was the stunt guy. Yeah, yeah. It was as soon as I typed in Damnation Alley, the trailer came up and then the full-length movie came up. Not
well,
once,
the
but
one I watched was the
three
link that I
times.
sent you. So,
No,
which was a different one. So,
I watched a different one. But the other thing I was going to tell you is they really like this truck. I mean, they spent a lot of money on this
three
truck.
hundred and $50,000 it cost.
Okay, maybe because the movie bombed, I obviously, but were there any tie-ins? Was there any plans? There was a cool movie poster, and was there a novelization? I know there was no
So,
lunch.
no, there was nothing really. They did do a novel with the movie poster on it, so the movie artwork. That was it. I'm not even sure if because Jerry Goldsmith did the score and it's quite a good
Did,
score.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think they even did a novelization.
The
Did a
music's not
soundtrack.
bad.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna knock Goldsmith. The music's okay, you
yeah.
know.
And the other thing, one thing that you would think they would make a toy
A model of that
Landmaster,
truck, yeah.
but they didn't. The closest thing that they came to, Matchbox in 1977 did a range of sort of space vehicles, and one
Yeah.
of them looked similar to the Landmaster.
I'm
I
gonna say there was a toy that came out in the 70s, maybe early 80s, where you could program the truck. It was called Big
track.
Track.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it kind of reminded me of this because you would punch in some numbers like go 10 feet, take a right, do my
Yep.
taxes, marry my wife, have 3 kids, and come back. And he would do it, and the car would go and do this and do that. That's the only thing that I resembled a toy based on
Yes.
this machine. So
I think
no,
they realized, maybe looking at it, that this is not going to be the big blockbuster that they
no.
had thought. In
And
fact,
to think that Star Wars 20th Century Fox had to put their money behind two projects that year, Star Wars and this was greenlit with more money than Star Wars
it
initially,
was,
right? And
yes.
who the hell thought that was going to be a big deal,
Well, yeah, I don't know. It did come with one of the gimmicks that it did was released with, and it was the only film released with this, was Sound 360.
Sound 360, I
So
saw
this
that.
was sort of like a competitor to, I think,
Fence around.
Earthquake, Sense-Around, and
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica had all
Yep.
that.
Roller
Um,
Coaster. There was another one. I think Towering Earthquake was in
yep,
Central. I saw that. It used to be this big, like subwoofer speaker they would put in the front of the theater, and during the scenes they would just crank it up, and your chairs would shake
yep.
from the bass and stuff. But I don't know what Surround 360 was all about. Maybe
Well,
be on peyote or something like that.
I don't know. I haven't, I never experienced it. I don't think many people did. It was the film was pretty much pushed out. It did okay in like the first week.
Oof.
And then it just disappeared because
Yeah.
Star Wars was everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Close Encounters came out. They basically, after it wasn't ready in I think it was June
Oh,
of
they kept pushing it
77.
back.
Then
Yeah.
it was going to
Yeah.
come out in December. And then, of course, that's when Close Encounters was released. And they thought, okay, let's move it to October. So it came out, disappeared. They had it on a
Boy.
double feature. In some places, it only made $4 million out of an
Yeah.
$8 million budget, so it didn't do very well at all. But it's got a bit of a cult following, and I think mainly
Well,
because people
everything does.
remember the Landmaster, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Now, I've never had anybody come up to me and say, "Hey, at your convention, we have a replica of the Landmaster. Do you want to?" I don't know. It did exist when I watched this behind the scenes of the show. It was around for a while. It did tour and show up at car shows.
There is one. There is,
Yeah.
it is around somewhere at some museum or something like that. So, but hey, maybe you could get Jackie Earl Haley at your convention.
I could. I wrote to him years ago and
Yep.
tried to get him to be a guest before he started getting on the circuit.
Yep.
When he had his big comeback in the Watchmen and
Watchmen.
such.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, I would like to ask him. I seriously, because you can't talk to, Jan Michael Vincent. You know what I was watching? I'm thinking a couple years later, you got the star of Airwolf and the star of the A Team working together to save the world. I mean, that would have been a better premise than this thing.
Oh yeah,
Hannibal Smith
absolutely.
meets
Yeah.
St. John Hawk, was it?
Oh, it
No,
could be.
Stringfellow Hawk. Stringfellow Hawk. St.
That's
John was
right.
his brother. That's right.
That's
We
right.
should do an Airwolf one.
And the guy with the
Oh,
arcade
the patch. Yeah, the
the
Archangel guy.
glasses, Archangel, wasn't it? Wasn't that
Yes,
his
yes,
name?
yeah, yeah. That was the secret spy. And of course, New Haven, Connecticut's
Ernest
own.
Borgnine. Is that
Friends
what
with
you're going to
my
say?
grandfather in Hamden, Connecticut on Olivia Street. Ernest Borgnine. Gale's Navy. That's
Yeah.
it, buddy.
All
They were
right.
like,
So
"Yeah."
if you're wanting to sleep, maybe watch Damnation Alley. It's worth a watch, I
Yes,
think,
put me
Um,
right out. I'm not kidding you. Right after the world got nuked, I was like, oh.
oh well.
And I woke
Hopefully
up
you
in
won't fall
Albany.
asleep during our shows, Mitch. How can you find out a little bit more about Mitch and Ed's excellent adventure?
Oh, Ed is easily as climbing in the back of a seat and watching some really lame bugs eat the flesh from your bones and scream like Paul Winfield did. All you got to do is hit the button below, and you too will be launched into another world as Ed and I go tripping out through TV, movies, and more right here on YouTube and my scary blue eyes.
That's right. Do you think Paul Winfield was going, oh, finally, that stupid damnation? I'm in Star Trek. And what happens? He
He
gets
gets
a
killed.
bug in his
He
ear.
gets a bug in his ear, a killer cockroach from SETI Alpha 5,
I know.
not
That's
SETI
it.
Alpha 6.
That's right. Check out our Star Trek Wrath of Khan episode. This is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch plugging away Halleck here.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.